Welcome back to a long overdue project update video. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these, but I wanted to jump on and start giving a weekly update of what I've been working on and what I plan to be working on. So first off, I recently put out a full-length video on Are My Tools Fancy? Because it's the Halloween season, there's been a lot of traffic on the wooden jack-o'-lantern templates that I make, and I've been putting out some videos on those. And so people were like, wow, he's got really fancy, expensive tools. Now, I am of the opinion that my tools are not that fancy. There was comments about my DeWalt plunge router, which I picked off of Amazon years ago, which is fairly inexpensive for a plunge router. So what I've done is I put together a full-length video on building a wooden jack-o'-lantern, and each time I pull out a tool, any of the tools that I'm using, I slide out the price and what that tool is. So if you want to pick up that tool for yourself, or decide in the end if these are expensive tools or not. I'd love your feedback on that. I'm going to put up a little tile up here someplace that'll show you how to get to that video. So that's the last full-length video that I put out. One of the projects that I was working on in my last project update videos was my daughter's desk. Now the desk has been moved up into her room, mostly assembled. The drawers are in that for her, but the drawer faces are not done yet. I put a coat of primer on those, and they really need to be sanded, and I am being incredibly lazy getting back to those drawer faces to sand that primer and then to put a couple coats of paint, and I really need to get that done before it starts getting too cold and I start having problems with paint drying and need to try to paint those inside. So hopefully I can just buckle down and get that done in the next few weeks, or at least, by Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving break, and get those attached. I do want to make some drawer slider pieces for inside those drawers so that she has some more storage. Just some little baskets that sit on top of those side pieces that I made in the drawers so that she can store pens and paper and makeup and whatnot. But those will be a future project down the road, but I know she's anxious for me to have those as well. So for the past week, I've been working on a minimalist wallet. So if you've been following any of my social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube, or Twitter, you'll see me working on a minimalist leather wallet. I've been wanting to play around with some leather, play around with some smaller materials that don't involve working in the shop with table saws, just something I can go inside and work on when it's colder outside. Sometimes it gets pretty cold in the shop, especially in the middle of January, early February, and it's too cold to work in there. Or in the summers when we're in the heat of August, it almost gets too hot to work in there sometimes. So I wanted a material that I could work with inside. I also wanted to expand my usage of the laser. So as you've seen in previous videos, I've got the X-Tool P2 laser, which is a CO2 laser, and it can be used to cut leather. And so I've been using that on these leather projects. And so I went in and designed up a basic design for a minimalist wallet that could hold some credit cards, your license, and some cash. So I like to cut those out on paper with the Cricut so I can get an idea of the shape and the size and how those are going to go together, and if they fit various credit cards and just what they're going to look like. So one of the reels I put out this week was cutting that on the Cricut with the paper. I do enjoy listening to that Cricut process back and forth. It's a very mesmerizing sound. But the Cricut just allows me to cut out each of those pieces and get a good idea, one, of how they're going to fit with things going in them, but also I can take that onto the leather and figure out how much leather I need to cut out to take over to the laser. So it's a good start with the Cricut. One thing I'm lazy about on the Cricut is when I cut on the laser, I cut the holes for the sewing. And so I also try to have the Cricut cut those out. Not that I really want those holes cut, but just because I'm too lazy to delete those circles off of the file. So the Cricut does a lot of extra work trying to do that cutting, unfortunately, and I probably need to make the effort to remove those holes for the needles so that it will cut a lot faster on the Cricut. So in the end, though, that was it, going on the Cricut, cutting out those leather templates. After that, it's a matter of cutting the pieces out of the leather. I use some lower ounce leather, like a 2 or 3 ounce leather for the outside pieces of the wallet, and then a slightly thicker 4 to 5 ounce leather for the inner pieces, just to give it a little bit more body for the wallet. I could definitely probably use 4 or 5 ounces for both, or 2 or 3 ounces for all 4 pieces. And it probably doesn't matter that much, but it just gives a little bit more sturdy of a feel. So the second reel that I put out was me getting those leather pieces cut out from the big sheets of leather that I have and taking them over to the X-Tool P2 laser and getting those all cut out and getting the 4 individual pieces, 2 out of the 2 to 3 ounce leather and 2 pieces out of the 4 to 5 ounce leather that I can use for this minimalist wallet project. It hasn't been dyed yet, so that's the next step. So in the third reel that I put out for the process of making this minimalist wallet is where I'm dyeing it. I'm using some saddle brown professional dye on that. So I really enjoy using the method of submerging my pieces into a container of dye that it really allows the Vegetan to suck up that pro dye. And I get a nice uniform color on all those pieces. I used to wipe it on, which would work, but it just didn't give as nice of a coloring as when I submerged those in. So I got all those 4 pieces dyed out, and those have dried, and of course I've been delayed on that project, so those pieces have been sitting for a little bit. The next steps I have to do on that is I need to do some edge burnishing of a few of the inside edges that I won't be able to get to once it's assembled together, and then I need to put some conditioner and protective coating on that leather to keep it kind of water resistant. Once that's done, I'm going to glue it up, which if you've seen my previous video where I made a minimalist wallet, I didn't glue the edges. And I want to try gluing those edges so that they kind of look more like one piece when everything's sewed together and they're not able to be separated at all on the edges. So I'm going to glue those up, sew it, and then there's more edge burnishing and edge finishing that I need to do on those. So that's some future steps on the projects that I need to do. The last reel I put out is I'm starting a new reel series. And in the past, I've worked on Lego compatible large letter bricks. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to print the entire alphabet. So the first video I put out was letter A. And in each letter, I'm going to print in a different filament brand, different filament color. And so that time I used Overture Green filament, which turned out great. I brought that filament for a different project I'm working on, but it's a really nice green filament and it prints great. So I printed A in that, and I would really love suggestions from other people. So if you want to drop down in the comments and give me some suggestions of PLA brands or colors that you like, so I can go ahead and try those on the rest of the alphabet. We got a lot more letters to go, and I want to do a lot of varying colors. And so if you can drop in suggestions of what colors I can use, that would be great. Those are the big things that I'm working on. I want to get the minimalist wallet done. I want to get those drawer faces done. And I'm going to keep working on the 3D printed ABC reels. I still need to edit all the video that I have from the desk build. I put out an initial video of the first half of that build where I built the body of that desk. I'll go ahead and put that link up here if anyone wants to check that out. But I still need to put out the video part where I'm building the drawers and finishing the desk, doing the edge banding and things like that. That project took forever, mainly because I was being lazy and putting it off and working on other things or just making excuses. And so it took a long time to get that desk built. And I'm not exactly motivated to get back to that footage and edit it into a video. So I'm hoping maybe it'll be closer when things start getting colder out and I can't spend as much time in the shop. I'm hoping to get back to editing those videos. We're also a few months away from Christmas. And so I'm trying to rack my brains for some Christmas presents that I could be making, whether those are out of wood or out of leather, probably not out of 3D printed stuff. The letters are cool when I 3D print them, but I'm not a huge fan of just individual 3D printed stuff for gifts. They seem to be trinkets and stuff that sits around and isn't realistic stuff. If you've got 3D print ideas that aren't just trinkets or little statues that sit around, I'd love to hear those. Sometimes the same things happen with laser cutting things. You get a little trinket or a little sign that sits around and people are making beautiful things, but I prefer to be more of a functional type person of making things that are functional and have a use and can get, it can serve a purpose in my life as opposed to sitting on a desk, and something more whimsical. But that's about it. If you got any video ideas, feel free to drop down below and hit me up in the comments. I love hearing from everybody. I'm really hoping to get a lot of feedback on different PLA filaments that I can use in the alphabet series that I'm doing. But other than that, I just love hearing from people. I love seeing you click the like buttons. Go ahead and hit that subscribe if you want to follow along. And otherwise, I will catch you on the next video. Happy making.